In a shocking revelation, Diddy's son has come forward to expose a disturbing culture of grooming, abuse, and exploitation that runs deep within the entertainment industry. Speaking out publicly for the first time, he shared his personal experiences of being manipulated by powerful figures, revealing a web of celebrity parties, hidden cameras, and silent witnesses that allowed abuse to thrive for years. His brave confession uncovers the darker side of Hollywood, where silence has been bought and threats have kept victims quiet. As his story unfolds, it's becoming clear that what was once whispered in private is now being dragged into the light, challenging the very foundations of the music and entertainment worlds. The video that sparked a revolution. The video began with him speaking quietly, as though his words might carry the weight of the world. He described his life in the spotlight, not the kind of life most people dream of, but one filled with hidden dangers and emotional scars. He explained how, from a young age, he had been groomed by the very people who should have protected him. Raised in a world where power was a currency and fame was the most valuable asset, he was taught to be silent, to smile, to act like everything was normal, even when it was anything but. He spoke about the parties. These were not the kind of parties you hear about on the news, the ones that celebrities attend to enjoy themselves and make memories. No, these were different. These parties were controlled environments, carefully curated to ensure that those in power stayed in control, while those around them were forced to comply. He wasn't just a child in these settings. He was an accessory, someone expected to behave, to be seen, and to be silent. His confession was a revelation. He was not the first to hint at the darker side of the entertainment industry, but his words carried an authenticity and rawness that could not be ignored. His voice cracked under the weight of what he had experienced, and it was clear that speaking out was not something he did lightly. The video quickly went viral, shared across social media platforms, and watched by millions. The world reacted with a mixture of shock, disbelief, and outrage. For years, whispers had surrounded the man who had built an empire on music and media. But now, those whispers had a face, a name, and a story that could no longer be silenced. The allegations against Diddy Combs, the man at the center of these allegations, had long been a figure of reverence in the entertainment world. A mogul, a businessman, a billionaire. He was the man who built an empire. He was known for his lavish parties, his celebrity friendships, and his larger-than-life persona. But behind the scenes, something far darker was unfolding. The young man's confession described a world where Diddy's influence was absolute. He was not just the head of an entertainment empire, he was a figure who controlled every aspect of the lives of those around him. For the son who spoke out, this control extended to his childhood. He was encouraged to act older, to be around adults, to participate in situations that made him uncomfortable, and to stay quiet about it all. He described a childhood filled with moments that no child should experience. Topless women, drugs openly used at parties, men and women engaging in behavior that was not only inappropriate, but dangerous. These were not just the occasional occurrences of a wild party. This was a pattern that was ignored by those who could have stepped in and stopped it. The young man spoke about the pressure to conform. In this world, there was no room for questioning the actions of the powerful. He learned quickly that to survive in this environment, he had to be complicit. He had to smile, act as though everything was fine, and keep quiet about anything that didn't seem right. This was not just about parties or wild nights in Hollywood. It was about control. Control over him, control over his image, and control over his silence. The courtroom drama, Diddy's children and the silence of the industry. The impact of the son's confession was felt most acutely in the courtroom. As the legal case against Diddy began to unfold, the world watched in anticipation. It was clear that this was more than just a criminal trial. It was a reckoning. Diddy was accused of sex trafficking and racketeering, charges that painted a terrifying picture of the lengths to which he and his associates had gone to maintain power. On the day that Diddy was brought into court, the tension was palpable. The courtroom was filled with reporters, lawyers, and onlookers who waited for the next twist in the story. Rumors had circulated that Diddy's family would make an appearance, and sure enough, his children entered the courtroom. But this time, it was not the large, seemingly united family that had been seen in previous court appearances. Only two of Diddy's children, Justin and Christian, were present. The absence of Quincy, Delilah, Jesse, and Chance was noted by those in attendance, and it spoke volumes about the complexity of the situation. The public was witnessing not just the legal battle of one of the world's richest men, but also the unfolding drama of a family torn apart by secrets and lies. As the trial progressed, more details began to emerge. The case against Diddy was not just about one man's alleged crimes. It was about a larger system that allowed such abuse to happen in the first place. The son's confession had opened a floodgate, revealing the darkness that had long been hidden behind the glitz and glamour of Hollywood. His words had brought attention to the wider issue of grooming and abuse within the entertainment industry, an issue that had been ignored or brushed aside for far too long. Grooming, the hidden danger behind fame. The most chilling part of the son's confession was not just the description of the parties or the behavior of the adults around him. It was the revelation that his abuse had started long before the parties, long before the drugs and alcohol. It began with small, seemingly insignificant moments that blurred the lines between childhood and manipulation. He spoke about being encouraged to act older than he was, to be around adults in situations that no child should ever be part of, and to stay silent when things didn't feel right. This is how grooming works. It starts slowly, with small steps that seem harmless at first. A conversation here, a drink there, encouragement to grow up faster, to be more mature, to accept the things around you as normal. And before the child knows it, they are trapped in a system that is built to maintain control. They are conditioned to believe that what is happening to them is normal, that they have no choice but to comply. The son's words painted a heartbreaking picture of how grooming works in the world of fame. He spoke about being surrounded by adults who acted like everything was fine, even as they engaged in behavior that should have been a warning sign. The people around him, the bodyguards, the staff, all knew what was going on. But no one said anything. No one stepped in to protect him. Instead, he was forced to smile, to pretend, and to keep quiet. The silence of the industry. One of the most troubling aspects of the son's confession was the silence of the industry. The entertainment world is filled with people who know what is happening but choose not to speak out. There are rumors, whispers, and half-hearted warnings, but when it comes to taking action, the industry turns a blind eye. This is not just about one man. It's about a system that protects the powerful and silences the vulnerable. As the case against Diddy unfolds, it has become clear that this is not just about one celebrity's fall from grace. It's about a culture of abuse that has long been accepted and ignored by those in power. The son's confession has forced the world to confront the truth about the entertainment industry, a world that has allowed grooming, manipulation, and abuse to thrive under the guise of fame and fortune. The price of silence. breaking free from a life of fear and control. It is a harsh truth, often buried under layers of shame, confusion, and time. The realization that you were a victim of abuse doesn't always come immediately. For Diddy's son, this truth took years to surface. For so long, he had been surrounded by a world that seemed glamorous from the outside, a world of fame, wealth, and power. But behind the curtain, the emotional scars ran deep. This isn't an uncommon story. Many survivors share the same experience. They don't realize they were manipulated and abused until they are much older. And by then, the damage has already been done. It's like standing in a house that has been destroyed by an earthquake, only to realize years later that the tremors were happening long before you felt the ground shake. For Diddy's son, the path to understanding was long and painful. At the time, he didn't have the language, the tools, or even the perspective to recognize the emotional manipulation that he had been subjected to. The very people who were supposed to love and protect him, who should have been his source of safety, were the ones who helped foster a world of exploitation and control. But now, years later, as he finds the courage to speak up, he's not just sharing his story. He's opening the door for others to find the strength to speak out, too. The healing begins with the telling of the truth, and his truth is one that reverberates with a force that cannot be ignored. The weight of power and influence. Diddy, once considered a mogul, an icon, and a symbol of success in the music and entertainment industry, now finds himself at the center of a storm of allegations that threaten to undo the very empire he built. For years, his image was synonymous with power, wealth, and glamour. The very name Diddy conjured images of red carpets, A-list celebrities, and the kind of excess that few could ever dream of. But behind that facade, there were children, his children, forced to navigate a world they should never have had to face. From a young age, Diddy's son was thrust into the spotlight. At first, it seemed like any child's dream, attending exclusive parties, rubbing elbows with celebrities, and living a life of luxury. But the reality was far more sinister. He was introduced to a world of adult situations long before he was equipped to understand or handle them. He attended parties where drugs and alcohol were rampant, where sexual undertones lingered in the air, and where silence was not only expected, it was demanded. These weren't just wild parties, as some might describe them. They were orchestrated environments designed to maintain control over those present, especially the vulnerable. In his emotional confession, Diddy's son recalls being at a party where, as a young boy, he was surrounded by topless women, men who were intoxicated or high, and celebrities who acted as though this was normal. The behavior wasn't just inappropriate, it was traumatic. He had no voice in the matter. He was expected to be part of it, to conform to a world that was far too big for him. His father, the man who should have protected him, was either complicit or indifferent to what was happening. In his mind, survival meant keeping quiet, playing along, and pretending it didn't affect him. Grooming in the spotlight, the hidden system of exploitation. What is grooming? How does it happen? In the case of Diddy's son, the grooming didn't start with the infamous parties. It didn't start with the flashing lights or the overwhelming pressure to fit into a world that felt too big for him. It began with the subtle manipulation that happens behind closed doors, long before the parties began. It started with small moments where his boundaries were blurred, where he was encouraged to act older than he was, where he was made to feel that his discomfort was unimportant, and where the concept of consent and safety was stripped away. Diddy's son recalls being told to act like an adult, to be cool around celebrities, to accept things that no child should have to accept. As a child, he didn't have the language to process what was happening. He didn't know how to put the pieces together. The world he lived in was chaotic and confusing, and it was hard to separate right from wrong when everyone around him was playing a game of deception. The grooming wasn't loud or overt, it was subtle. The constant presence of powerful people, the pressure to maintain an image, and the expectation to be compliant were all parts of a larger system that kept him trapped. But grooming doesn't just affect the victim in the immediate moment. It has long-lasting effects that can persist into adulthood. The mental scars, the loss of trust, the inability to distinguish between genuine relationships and manipulative ones. It all takes time to unpack, and even after the truth is revealed, the damage remains. The alleged network, hidden figures in the shadows. What was once a personal story has now evolved into something much larger. As Diddy's son bravely speaks out about his experiences, the implications of his testimony grow wider. It's not just about Diddy anymore. This is about a system, a network of powerful people who have operated in the shadows, exploiting young talent and abusing their power for years. The deeper the investigation goes, the more disturbing the revelations become. The most unsettling part of his confession wasn't just the revelation of what he had personally endured, it was the confirmation that he was not alone. Other survivors, other witnesses, have come forward with similar stories. Celebrities who were once seen as untouchable now have a new narrative attached to their names. It's not just about the parties anymore. It's about a hidden network of people, powerful figures in the entertainment industry, who have allegedly been complicit in these actions for years. The leaked footage from the infamous parties that Diddy hosted paints a picture of a well-orchestrated system of exploitation. Insiders report that the footage doesn't just confirm the existence of these parties, but it shows disturbing interactions between A-list celebrities and vulnerable individuals. The people involved were not just background figures, they were the faces of Hollywood, the ones who graced magazine covers, stages, and red carpets. Their faces were a part of the fabric of American pop culture, but behind closed doors, they were reportedly participating in activities that were not just illegal. They were immoral, exploitative, and traumatic. The voices of the silenced. Echoes of past allegations. This story isn't new. It's a narrative that has been echoed by other former child stars, like Orlando Brown, who has been speaking out for years about the abuse he endured in Hollywood. For years, his allegations were dismissed as the ramblings of a troubled star. People labeled him as unstable, as a casualty of the Hollywood machine. But now, in light of Diddy's son's testimony, those claims are starting to seem less like the delusions of a disgruntled former star and more like early warnings that were ignored. Orlando Brown's claims about a system of exploitation in Hollywood align with Diddy's son's story. He has spoken out about being manipulated, used, and discarded by powerful people in the industry. The similarities between their stories suggest that the problem isn't isolated. It's part of a much larger, more insidious network that has thrived for years, hidden in plain sight. The names may be different, but the experiences are the same. This isn't just about one person. It's about an entire system that exploits the vulnerable for the gain of the powerful. The system of fear and silence. Hollywood, with its immense wealth and influence, has long operated under a culture of silence. Victims of abuse, whether emotional, physical, or sexual, are often silenced through a combination of fear, threats, and non-disclosure agreements, NDAs. These legal tools, designed to keep the privileged protected, have been used to stifle victims, rendering them invisible in the face of powerful abusers. Diddy's son, in his emotional confession, revealed how this culture of fear had affected him personally. He admitted that, for years, he didn't even realize he had been a victim of abuse. This common confusion is something many survivors experience: the inability to recognize mistreatment until much later in life, after the emotional and psychological damage has already been done. It was only when he found the courage to speak out, as difficult as it was, that he realized how deep the system of manipulation and exploitation ran, not just in his own life but across Hollywood as a whole. The fear of speaking out was compounded by the overwhelming sense of power that these celebrities and moguls wield. Diddy, a towering figure in the music industry, built his empire on the backs of those who were dependent on him for their careers. For many, speaking out against their abuser would mean the end of their careers, blacklisting, or worse. But now, thanks to brave individuals like Diddy's son, the truth is starting to surface. Their voices are beginning to pierce the wall of silence that has protected the powerful for so long. The flash drives and their dark revelations. At the center of the current investigation into Diddy is the shocking discovery of a set of flash drives that were allegedly given to an individual named Courtney Burgess before the death of Diddy's ex-partner, Kim Porter. According to Burgess, Kim handed him 11 flash drives, which he claims contain disturbing footage from private parties attended by some of the most famous and powerful figures in Hollywood. These flash drives have since been handed over to a grand jury, and the FBI is currently reviewing the footage. What has emerged from these drives, if the claims are to be believed, is nothing short of explosive. The footage reportedly shows well-known celebrities engaging in illegal and immoral behavior, often with individuals who appear to be intoxicated or under the influence of drugs, unable to give proper consent. In some instances, people were filmed without their knowledge. Even more disturbing, the videos allegedly show several individuals who appear to be victims, not willing participants in the acts being filmed. The public shock over these revelations cannot be overstated. The names of those involved have yet to be officially released, but the speculation has been rife. A-list actors, musicians, and industry moguls are believed to be implicated, and the fear of exposure is palpable throughout Hollywood. If these videos are authenticated, the consequences will be catastrophic, not just for Diddy, but for anyone caught in the web of exploitation that these flash drives appear to unravel. The darker question: why did no one speak up? One of the most perplexing questions surrounding this growing scandal is how it could have continued for so long without any of the victims speaking out. The answer, as has become painfully clear, is fear. Fear of losing their careers, fear of being blacklisted, fear of being publicly humiliated, and in some cases, fear of retaliation from those with enough power to destroy lives. In Diddy's case, his son's silence was not just due to personal fear, but also due to the immense loyalty and love he felt for his father. The manipulation was so ingrained that the idea of speaking out was unfathomable, even in the face of abuse. This pattern of silence is echoed in the stories of other survivors, including Joy Dickerson and Nay Yo, who both allege that Diddy's abusive behavior was part of a larger network of exploitation that included sexual assault, blackmail, and manipulation. Joy Dickerson's civil lawsuit, filed under New York's Survivors Act, contains explosive claims that Diddy not only raped her in 1991, but also recorded the assault and shared the footage with others. This pattern of revenge porn, where abusers share intimate, non-consensual footage with others to further shame and intimidate victims, is unfortunately not uncommon in Hollywood. For many victims, these violations were not just physical, but psychological, destroying their sense of self-worth and leaving them isolated from support networks that might have helped them find the courage to speak out sooner. Cassie Ventura, a survivor's story. In a bombshell civil lawsuit, Diddy's ex-girlfriend, the singer Cassie Ventura, outlined years of physical and emotional abuse. According to the lawsuit, Diddy frequently threatened Cassie with violence, including a chilling incident in 2012 when he allegedly told her that he intended to blow up the car of rapper Kid Cudi. Cassie claims that Diddy's jealousy and control extended to every aspect of her life, often resorting to violent means to reinforce his power over her. The allegations in Cassie's lawsuit are detailed and horrifying. At times, she says she had to hide from Diddy in hotels for days to let her bruises heal after violent beatings. And then there are the gun allegations. Cassie claims that Diddy forced her to hold his guns as a way of reinforcing his control over her, reminding her of his violent and dangerous nature. These chilling accounts paint a picture of a man who used not only his power, but also his fearsome reputation to keep those around him in line. A wider web. More victims speak out. As the investigation into Diddy's actions expands, it's clear that he is not the only powerful figure being scrutinized. Other individuals have begun to step forward with their own accusations of abuse and exploitation. One of the most disturbing new claims comes from Rodney "Lil Rod" Jones, a producer who worked with Diddy on his 2022 album. According to his lawsuit, Diddy sexually assaulted him, groping him without consent, and coercing him into engaging in unwanted sexual acts. In addition to the sexual abuse allegations, Lil Rod's lawsuit claims that Diddy and his team tried to force him into a sex trafficking scheme. This marks a horrifying pattern in the entertainment industry, where powerful individuals use their influence to groom, manipulate, and exploit those beneath them. Lil Rod's story, like so many others, reveals how this system operates, a system in which victims are made to feel powerless and isolated, and where abusers are protected by their wealth and status. The Reckoning. Will Hollywood change? As these survivors come forward and the investigation into Diddy deepens, the entertainment industry is facing a reckoning it cannot ignore. The revelations, the lawsuits, and the growing number of survivors willing to speak out all point to a broader truth. Hollywood's culture of silence and abuse is being exposed. The questions now being asked are difficult ones. How deep does this go? How many more victims are still too afraid to speak? And most importantly, will the powerful figures who have been protected by wealth and influence finally face accountability for their actions? As the investigation continues and more evidence is uncovered, the entertainment world is watching closely. Careers are on the line. Major names are being scrutinized. And for the first time, the industry is being forced to confront its darkest secrets. Whether or not real change will come remains to be seen. But the truth is finally being heard, and the survivors are leading the charge.